In order for this video to make sense to you, you have to understand something about the political landscape of the United States. For decades, there's been growing tension and discontent between the main parties of politics, the Democrats and the Republicans, fueled by political leaders and underlings trying to gain positions of power for long stretches of time. However, while the people in suits were craving political power, the average citizen craved social power, more specifically in the hellscape that is the internet. And while I could sit here and whisper into your ear sweet nothings about how the Democrats and conservatives argue with each other online 24/7, about how their oppositions and their takes and their leaders are all ruining the country, but in order to do that, I would have to sit here until 2032. Instead, I want to highlight a moment that will forever be remembered as a black eye for the United States, no matter how you view it or what political leanings you hold deep inside. And that moment in time is January 6, 2021, where people, mainly fans of Trump, stormed the Capitol due to being upset about the election, a significant moment that led to people being hurt, dead, arrested, pardoned, and arrested again, and as of time of recording, banned from the state of Texas unless they're showing up for court appearances. Yes, that happened. That is a real thing, and I find that to be completely hilarious. The discourse in the eventual aftermath was about what you'd expect from Democrats, that the Republican leader got people riled up and how Republicans are violent and these people should be locked up for what they did. They were called terrorists to democracy, and as time went on, all of those things became a part of history for us to talk about and make excuses for and be embarrassed by. But at the time, in my mind, something was going on. As this was developing, as I was seeing the discourse, as I was seeing the aftermath, even as I was seeing pardons over time. And the thought was, well, what happens when the pendulum ends up swinging and goes into a different direction, leading to the roles in this scenario being reversed? And I can already smell the amount of people yelling at me about and I can't believe I'm about to say this, summer of love. We've all come to an understanding that burning a Wendy's down did nothing for the black community and caring about black lives. Instead, I want to draw your attention to 2025 in late September going into October, where the Trump administration announced the National Security Presidential Memorandum 7 in an attempt to snuff out organizations that involve themselves in political violence. And while at the time it was cheered by people as being something to target these evil leftist organizations and how they promote political acts of violence and cheer it on and have these secret organizations and financial ties to these things, it was also criticized due to the First Amendment and the protections that gives to organizations in their right to free speech.
NSPM 7, for those of y'all who don't know, they're talking about the National Security Presidential Memorandum 7. This is the one that designates Antifa as a terrorist organization. Or does it? If you actually get into it, you'll find that it doesn't have nearly as much teeth as people are making it out to be. As expected, it's an executive order. It's not actually a law. If you go through it, Section 1 is basically the ramblings of a geriatric just projecting everything that he's been doing onto an imaginary organization that he dubs Antifa. Section 2 gets into strategy and implementation. We're going to focus specifically on Section 2, Part B real quick. That line attempts to classify people like me, people who are in the social media sphere, who attempt to recruit or radicalize people. It's directing the Joint Task Force to investigate potential federal violations related to the act of recruiting or radicalizing. Notice that they say you can't actually go arrest people for recruiting or radicalizing, just that we're going to go try to find laws or violations that you may have broke in the process of. This is real similar to the executive order on flag burning, where it's like, hey, we can't actually criminalize burning the flag because executive orders aren't laws, but we can direct the Department of Justice to go investigate every instance of flag burning and see if there's a potential violation. Maybe you were burning on the sidewalk. Maybe there's a law you didn't know you were breaking in the process of executing that act. And then we'll go have the Department of Justice do that. The DOJ got wind of that and they were looking into investigating it. All they would be able to do is go see if, like, maybe if there's a burn ban going on in my county, they could go prosecute me for violating the burn ban, but they can't actually turn what is a legal act into an illegal act. Again, executive orders are not laws. The more insidious bit is whenever you get into Section 2, Part C. This gets into people who fund people who the administration deems to be Antifa. This gets a little more dicey because As I understand it, it's going to give them the ability to investigate any potential funders, and that's going to give them the opportunity to go through your books. Maybe they'll find some type of fraud or criminal activity there, and it will cause people to avoid associating with anybody who is perceived to be leftist. I don't know how that's going to go whenever you actually get to court and the administration is tasked with proving that you funded an organization that doesn't actually exist. I'm not a lawyer. You take it up with somebody else on that.
And you could be wondering, what could possibly be the reason for this long-winded intro leading up to talking about the NSPM-7? Well, it's because arrests have been made and sentences have been given out as of recently, and you can imagine the reactions to those sentences are about what you'd expect.
This is so much bigger than sentencing 5 anti-ICE protesters to 50 years each in federal prison. They just created a legal blueprint. None of these protesters committed violence, but Trump's executive order classified Antifa as a terrorist organization. And if you're legally considered a terrorist, you can be charged for any violence that occurs at a protest, even if you have nothing to do with it. Now, all the Trump administration has to do is prove you're a member of Antifa, and if anything violent happens at a protest, you can be federally charged for it. Just your presence at a protest is now a federal crime if even one person does something violent. This might have been the first time this happened, but I can guarantee you it's not gonna be the last. They now have a repeatable blueprint to criminalize dissent that they can follow. This is genuinely terrifying. Here's my source if you want more information about this.
Who knows what's going to happen with this, but in a sane world, these people would immediately appeal and have these sentences overturned. Because the sentences flagrantly violate their 8th Amendment against cruel and unusual punishment. They were attending a protest and they got 50+ years in prison. Meanwhile, nobody from the Epstein files has even been arrested. This kind of bullshit is why the Second French Revolution is right around the corner. Because Trump and his billionaires in this country are telling us it's totally fine for them to squeeze us for every single dollar we have while they simultaneously abuse children on private islands. But if we exercise our First Amendment right to protest, or so much as touch the reflecting pool, we get decades in prison.
Protesters that participated in a noise demonstration outside of an immigration detention center in Texas were just given prison sentences of 30 to 70 fucking years. One prisoner was given a prison sentence of 100 years. And if you're like me, you're probably wondering what fucking loony bin judge would give anyone a prison sentence for peaceful protest. It's this fuckwit. Mark Pittman has a truly heinous court ruling history. Do y'all remember how the Biden administration was trying to pass an executive order to alleviate student loan debt? Yeah, Mark Pittman said, no. Mark Pittman also thinks it's unfair for colleges to consider historical racism in their admission process. Mark Pittman is also the reason why 18 to 20-year-olds in Texas can now carry concealed handguns. You can't fucking reform this system. This system allows people like this to be judges. Fuck ICE, fuck cops, fuck the United States carceral and judicial system. Fuck the United States government.
And while it is cartoonishly funny thinking that people are willing to perform their activism hard enough that they come up with the idea that during the 4th of July they're going to go out at night outside of an ICE facility and light fireworks, thinking in that framework that somehow doing that is going to let the immigrants inside the facility know that people are making noise outside in an effort to show that they have not been forgotten and people care about them, I realize that that's just cartoonishly fucking stupid, and people are going to think that these people are just lighting fireworks because it's the 4th of July. So again, performative activists don't really know how to perform and actively show how much they care about something. They are desperate to just put on a show for themselves. But when you have people sectioning themselves off to vandalize property by slashing tires and breaking cameras, you run into that problem of, okay, we've gone past the point of peaceful demonstration and using our First Amendment right to peacefully protest, and now we're we're going into the area in which law enforcement needs to be brought into the situation, and they end up getting shot, and you have all these people going to court over that and various other things. It leads to that conversation, as various people have reacted to this, about the First Amendment and the right to protest and how people should peacefully protest, and if people are being arrested for peacefully protesting. And when you're factoring in a guy shooting somebody, that's not a peaceful protest. When you're factoring in somebody being instructed to move what could be evidence in an investigation, that is not peaceful protest, even though that person wasn't there. They have now included themselves in something without proper context in knowing how we all got here by dotting I's and crossing T's. When you have people burning down a Wendy's to try to speak for Black lives, when you have people storming a building to protest an election, these are things that go past the realm of peaceful demonstration, peaceful protest, and that First Amendment. These will be things that, excluding the one that led to a bunch of pardons, will get you put behind bars. And as we've stated numerous times, this justice system tends to dull out punishments in different varieties and lengths over time, and that's a conversation that people don't want to have unless it's in their racial box and trying to prove that something was done in a racist fashion, because that's the only time they're willing to bring this shit up. However, if this is going to be a thing that continues, it needs to be substantial to actually being threats. Because if you're just arresting individuals who sit around saying they don't like the government, or they read books about how they don't like the government, or they're a part of book clubs about how they don't like the government, and they dedicate time making and producing books about how they don't like the government, and you have FBI agents testifying that there's nothing illegal about that, yet those individuals are still being arrested, I think we have a little bit of a problem here. Because I don't think anyone, if we're going amongst the First Amendment and free speech rules that are put in place, should be getting arrested for voicing that they don't like something. I feel as though you should if you decide to slash a tire, burn a building down, shoot a cop, things like that. But when you are voicing your frustration or how much you disagree with something, I don't think you should be facing prison time. I think at worst, you should be arguing with college kids and filming it for a YouTube video. Nothing there screams, haha, this is what you get. That screams to me, we're going to start going down a rabbit hole that will have a lot of people in trouble in the coming months and years, because we decided to antagonize more people who had something to say rather than going at all the individuals who actually do something that's against the law. You have a woman who a couple weeks ago, this is unrelated to anything happening here except for in regards to the First Amendment, who got arrested for criticizing the drinking water in her community.
Of dark, dirty water sent to Fox 4 by some Trinidad residents. Texas Commission on Environmental Quality is investigating, while the city, residents, and even some potential private investors search for solutions.
I hope with all of my heart that it's something that's great for Trinidad to get clean, good water for the residents.
Combs' case was dismissed. So was a case against Winston Knowles, charged with disorderly conduct while protesting Combs' arrest outside City Hall. Their arrests sparking freedom of speech concerns from across the country.
But the lack of accountability is what stands out to me, and this idea that we're just going to keep doing whatever we want until, I guess, we're told we can't.
Attorney C.J. Grisham represents Combs and a group of plaintiffs filing lawsuits against City of Trinidad and city officials, alleging First Amendment violations and even retaliation. The police chief, a defendant, being sued.
My biggest concern now is, are they going to promote one of these bad officers to take the chief's place? And that's not going to fix the problem.
Fox 4 went inside Trinidad Police Department in an effort to speak with Chief Gregory Monday, but the chief choosing to not interview with us, citing those pending lawsuits. Chief Gregory has turned down multiple interview requests with Fox 4 since last month.
I'm the type of person that if I did wrong to someone, I stand up and say I did wrong to them, and I apologize.
Chief Gregory's final day will be Friday, June 19th.
It leaves his officers that depend on him for leadership in a bad situation to clean up the mess that they're all now in. And I don't really think that that's fair or valuable in leadership.
Do you think the problem is deeper than the police chief?
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely do.
But the issue at hand that started all this was not you being arrested. The issue was the water.
It was the water, and it's still not fixed.
Once we start getting to that level, that's a problem that I think everyone, especially the free speech nut jobs, should be hammering in on. Because whether if you agree or disagree, you should be allowed to voice if you agree or disagree. Once you take it to that step that we all know belongs in prison, well, that's your ass. But if you're writing or reading or hanging out with people who are talking about things that you all agree or disagree with, we're stepping into territory that's not going to be good for a lot of people, especially those who care about the First Amendment. But like it or not, here we are. And I would like to end this video the way I've ended a few videos in recent months as it pertains to activists and their ideas on how to show how much they are activists. Erase that shit off of the whiteboard, and now you got to come up with something totally different that doesn't land you in jail via terrorist organization propaganda or your ties to individuals in an effort to make sure that you can continue to disagree with things without being arrested. You got to come up with some different shit, lighting fireworks, slashing tires, making books, and running around even when you have FBI agents saying that there's nothing illegal about that. You giving material support to other individuals could land you in a little bit of trouble. Your phone call with a wife being recorded and you moving her material, that's probably a part of an investigation. All of that, get it off the whiteboard. Come up with something, because as the days turn into weeks and turn into months and maybe a couple more years, it's looking like y'all in a little bit of trouble if you don't dot your I's and cross your T's. But let me know what you think about this in the comments down below. Do you think free speech is under attack? Do you think your First Amendment is going away? Do you think that in the coming years, when the pendulum eventually shifts back to the left, do you think they're going to start coming after the people on the right? I will see you all in the next one. Mwah. Bye-bye.